orally, we will do that, but they don't want to sign any contracts, though they are literate participants, where either the researcher or participants could be put at risk by existence of a paper record. ಈ paper record na ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಅದು ತೊಂದರೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. So we don't want to have any paper record. Just we will give the data, but sometimes it may be anonymous data. Anonymity need to be maintained or whatever it is, but without any document. And maybe time for consent is limited. ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಇವಾಗ ಒಂದು ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಡೇಟಾನ obtain ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ probably when it requires signatures, this, that and all that may require time. When there is no time, and especially you are all doing just the academic research and all that, so sometimes when this is a time consuming process, then when you can go for a oral consent from the people for research conducted via remote video conferencing software. Sometimes nowadays now we are having all digital media. ಇವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೂಗಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಆ ಗೂಗಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸರ್ವೇಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ಡೇಟಾನ ತಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಅಥವಾ ಟೆಲಿಕಾನ್ಫರೆನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಡೇಟಾನ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದಿ ಓರಲ್ ಕನ್ಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಟೇಕನ್ ವೇರ್ ದಿ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಡ್. And it may also be more appropriate when interviewing a live participant as part of the research. Sometimes you are having high profile people, so they don't want to put anything on record, right? So high profile are live participants, but still they are ready to give the data to you. So the signing of any document or any sort of record is not required, but still the data can be obtained. And all other research, the arranged oral process depends on how we will encounter our participants. So whether it is a written consent or a oral consent, what is the ethical consideration or a responsibility of the researcher, that it has to be informed consent. Informed consent is nothing but obtaining permission from the participant who is going to give the data. As I said, it cannot be hidden. You cannot use hidden cameras, cannot use hidden audio recorders, cannot film them, photographs, images, or you cannot ask some third party about their information, make a note of it. No, that is strictly prohibited in an academic research, right? That is the ethical consideration. So any research that you are doing, when you are collecting the data, so you need to obtain permission from the participant, and that obtaining permission is called as informed consent. So many a times the participants do not agree to audio recording if using or keeping audio record is unsafe. Sometimes if the audio records or videography is done, if the participants think that sometimes it may be misused, or sometimes it may also be released, or sometimes it may also be probably not stored properly, not very safe, then in that case such type of data may not be accepted by the participants, and they should have the free will to do so. And the second important consideration is that protecting the privacy. Protecting the privacy of an individual or the participant in a research is very, very important. So this privacy relates to the method for collecting data. In other words, the study's location, tools and planned interactions affect the ability to maintain the participation. So like privacy in the sense, a person must have given a consent to give the data. But that does not mean that anytime, anywhere you can just go and say that, yeah, now I want to interview you, or you should fill this questionnaire because you have already given a consent to me. No, that cannot be done, because there has to be a guaranteed privacy for an individual. Maybe in certain location that individual may not like to give the data, or maybe in a particular time the individual may not like to give the data. Maybe in a particular situation, in the presence of some people, the individual may not like to give the data. Data in the sense his opinion, or maybe whatever it is, it may not be possible. Sometimes a good question is, would a reasonable member of a population being studied consider information to be private? Here I have given you an example. If at all, if you covert observation of public behavior, studying restraints on a crowded site would probably not be considered as an invasion of privacy. For example, if you want to see the crowd or vehicle jam in Bangalore, if you are observing it, if you are observing the vehicle jam or maybe the pedestrians walking, right, the crowd of it, that may not be an invasion of a public the privacy, right? Invasion of a privacy. But still, I have given another example. Maybe a public restroom. Somebody is using a public restroom. It is called as a public restroom, but you cannot enter and talk to a person about your research in a public just because the word public is there. You cannot say that I am not intruding in your privacy, right? It is purely a private one. It is purely a private one. Maybe an individual's rest time. Maybe for an individual's, maybe it is a break. Maybe an individual's lunch break. Maybe an individual's sleep time. You cannot say that you have already given consent at any time. You cannot call an individual at 11 o'clock and say that now I am conducting a online this one, would you please give the, so no, you cannot do that. Or a person just maybe in his office walking in a corridor, you cannot go and stop him and talk to him in a corridor, okay? Or maybe you cannot simply enter an individual's personal space, right? Without the permission, just because an individual has given a permission. So, a guaranteed privacy or protecting privacy. So you should know, sometimes when we are talking to people, we will just ask them, is it a convenient time to talk to you? Don't we ask? We ask them, is it a convenient time to talk to you? Because we don't know whether the individual was taking rest or was doing something very important. We do not know. You cannot simply start a conversation just because the individual has said hello. And you need to find out whether the time is convenient for him, whether he can give you 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever the time you require. So if you do not ask that and do that, you are invading or in the privacy of an individual, whether it is physically or it is maybe digitally or calling or maybe talking to an individual. So protecting the privacy of the individual. You can collect the data maybe in the locale, maybe in the time when the person is comfortable. You can talk to the people, you can interview them, you can go to them, maybe you can ask them to fill a survey or give an interview. Only after giving consent, only the person should feel comfortable about the local place where you are conducting an interview or collecting data or the time which is convenient to a participant, right? Otherwise, you cannot enter anywhere which the individual considers is private or maybe an individual space it is or a private space it is. So that guaranteed privacy or maybe protecting privacy is very, very important for an academic research whenever you are collecting a data. So sometimes like we are collecting a data, maybe in a group, talking to person maybe about certain sensitive issues, then there are other people around, the individual may not feel very comfortable when you are asking some personal questions or maybe very sensitive questions which the individual wants to give response to about the opinion to the researcher, but he doesn't want the other people to know about it, right? So in such cases, what do? There are certain like measures like noise measures or maybe something which does not disrupt an individual who is answering or personally a listener, but that obstructs the others to listen the conversation. Maybe something has to be done where the individual feel very, very comfortable. And secondary subjects. So secondary subjects, what is that when you are talking about protecting privacy, secondary subjects. You must have seen, sometimes you are collecting the data. About just now I said you cannot ask a third person about another individual collect the data. Whenever you are going to a teacher, when you are going to a doctor, maybe about a child, the doctor will ask the parents about the child, right? And the teacher will ask the parents about the child. But sometimes when you are collecting a data, maybe usually it happens in case studies, where the larger data from all the people associated with the individual, whether they are peer group, whether they are friends, whether they are siblings, parents or neighbors, or maybe the organizations to which the individual belongs, probably you need to collect data from all those people using all sources. In such cases, You cannot collect data directly going to the people who knows that participant and collect the data without the permission of that individual, right? That individual has to permit you which peer group you can meet, from which organization you can collect information, right? And which people that he has a consent to talk about him, right? And that in case if a researcher wants data from all these people, he should inform. He should inform and say that I am collecting information or their opinions of your parents, maybe sibling, your neighbors, your peer group, the organizations to which you belong to, and for that you should obtain the consent from an individual. If at all, if it is not done, then it becomes breach of privacy. So it is invasion into privacy. So because about an individual, a close friend may be knowing something, maybe a sibling may be knowing something, maybe an organization may be knowing something, but if an individual feels not very comfortable about that data to be shared with the researcher, then it becomes breach of privacy. Okay? So in that condition, from where, from whom, that the third person from whom you are collecting the data, they are called as secondary subjects. They are called as secondary subjects. So the participant should also know who are the secondary subjects from whom you are collecting the data about that participant. That should also be informed, otherwise that becomes, it's not a protection of privacy. So otherwise it is unethical to collect the data such from the secondary individuals or maybe from the subjects. Sometimes it may be required to collect data from all these people, but that individual should be informed like why it is required and what opinions that we are taking. Guaranteed confidentiality. So guaranteed confidentiality is arguably more important in research, while privacy is easily assured with proper consent procedure, whereas confidentiality of data takes more effort to maintain. Sometimes if the data storage is not done very carefully, it becomes unsafe when sensitive data is available with the researcher about the individuals. So maintaining confidentiality is very, very important. So sometimes when the individual, see, it is a question of trust. It is the question of trust, that is the researcher should establish a rapport with the participant in order to collect the data and ensure that the confidentiality is maintained. So whenever we are giving a covering letter to any participant, we are mentioning in that whatever the data is collected, that will be strictly used only for research purpose, right? It will be strictly used only for research purpose, and the personal data will not be shared with any individual. Thus I was telling that I was having a radio chemically program. That was how the program went on and what exactly, and people who were stakeholders, they wanted the results to be in a particular way, which we could not have done, but still we cannot reveal like what is happening as a case, like generally what is happening in many schools and how it is happening, how the program is becoming ineffective, what is to be done to make it more effective can be given. But you cannot release the data, which schools, which headmaster, which teacher, in which place in the state they said that and they are doing this. No, that becomes a breach of privacy as well as the that is what the confidential, non-maintenance of confidentiality. So you are collecting data, you want to know how the scheme is working, whether it is effective or not. If it is not effective, what things are happening, what is the status. In case if you want to improve, what is to be done. But there you might have collected from all the districts in the state, from so many schools, from so many heads, so many teachers. But you cannot leak from which school, which place, which head, which teacher, what they are doing. That cannot be done. So the data need to be maintained confidently. You may be having, you may put your, like all your experiences together when you are preparing a report, like how it is happening, because even in a city like Bangalore, the schools have kept those tape recorders, these that not using, they don't even know when the people, the field assistants and field supervisors, they go, they are telling that we will get the tape recorder tomorrow, we'll arrange for it, and they are doing 2-3 teachers together. That is an ongoing program every day. Within that particular period they are supposed to do. In some of the rural areas, that radio or tape recorder is kept in headmaster's room, and they are saying that no, after I retire or after I transfer, I need to give back. The doors are not safe, the window is not correctly fit. If I lose it, I may be dismissed, I may lose my job, and we are not doing it. Okay, they are why they are not doing? Because they feel there is no safety. And some teachers are not able to do because they feel that the training that was given to them is not adequate. Okay, and sometimes there are places, rural areas, morning 6 to evening 6, we went and we saw, there is no power electricity. How will that the scheme be implemented? And there are instruments, devices which are giving, which are not like what we say, standard, or where nothing can be heard properly except the soil noise. Okay, there are so many things. You can put why there is a failure. What is that can be done? But it cannot be said where exactly what is happening. Cannot be done, because that becomes once again breach of confidentiality. So maintaining confidentiality or storage of the data is a very important aspect, and the participant should feel safe after revealing their opinions, because there may be a risk, there may be a threat, sometimes there may be a threat to life, there may be a mental harm, right? There can also be a threat to what is their dignity. There can be so many things when the data is released, maybe in a personal name of an individual. So maintaining confidentiality is very important for a researcher, and that is another important consideration. First, while taking data, if you say that yes, that will not be, the individual name will not be released, right? And your personal address and name will not be given to anybody, your photographs will not be released, and once the data is collected, if you do that, then in that case it becomes a breach of confidentiality and the trust, and that is not accepted or permitted in an academic research. In an academic research, it is highly prohibited, otherwise it is a question of ethics. So another important ethical consideration to be maintained is guaranteed confidentiality.